I'll just take 3 questions and then we'll sort of end the program with a meal downstairs. So just 3 questions, and please, whoever is directed, please keep the answers short. Thank you very much. Yes, gentleman there first. I'll take all the 3 questions. They may be similar, so please, what's your question, please? Yes, please. No, not 3 for you, just 1 for you. Yes.
The first is, where are these assets? 222 billions are kept in national banks or somewhere in the West, America, Britain, or Switzerland?
No, inside Bahrain, sir.
Inside Bahrain. Second is, who are behind these, oppressive, torturous tactics? Is there upper hand from the Western, as Dr. Rizvi started, that Bahrain being a $1 million miracle? So is that what role is behind the screen played by the West? And third is, who is in the constitutional amendment framework? Is it from Britain behind? Because they have been master of these things and they are old masters.
Okay. Sorry, your question.
I've only detected one lady in one of the committees. I think it was the monetary committee. What role are women allowed to play in Bahrain? Don't appear in any position of power. They are not allowed to take that.
Okay, we can answer that in a minute. Any other question? Final question, please. Yes, Dr. Said.
A question to Mariam and to Hanifa. First, Mariam, you have been to United States recently, or you will go to United States. What will be your message to countries like US, UK, as they continue their support to the regime, and how humane is their support to this authoritarian regime? And to Hanifa, to what extent can the issue of human rights abuses be used to put pressure on these governments? And I mean, you as a human rights body, how influence do you have to change the course of maltreatment and ill-treatment of detainees? Because what you mentioned and what has happened this time has exceeded any expectation, especially with the people like Dr. Abdul Jalil Sengais and Ja'far Hisabi and others.
Okay, if I could get Mariam and Hanifa to answer the respective questions, then I'll come to Dr. Baghdad to address the issue that was raised at the beginning. Please, if you could.
Okay, in regards to my message to the Western world, and this is the same thing that I've been telling people in Brussels when I met with the EU bodies, the same thing that I've been telling people in Geneva at the Human Rights Council when I met with state officials. Bahrain is one of the few Gulf countries that actually does hold an interest in what the rest of the world has to say about them. And we saw this, as I told Press TV yesterday, we saw this when they actually charged the defendants, the detainees, the current detainees, with 3 charges in relevance to them contacting the outside world and the international bodies. And after the outrage expressed by the international community, they actually went and withdrew these charges. Now this proves that the Bahraini government is actually listening to the international bodies and listening to what they're saying, and it has a huge effect on what they do. As for the US, I mean, it's very important to point out that in the beginning of this whole unrest, at the beginning of it, a lot of the Bahraini community believed that the US had a lot to do with what was happening. And that was because, due to the statements made by the ambassador to the US, Joseph Borrelli. And he basically said that there's a binary of freedom in Bahrain. He said that people shouldn't be going to the outside to speak out. They should stay in Bahrain because the Bahraini government has provided this for the Bahraini people, and so on and so forth. And some people believe that this actually gave sort of a green light to the Bahraini government to start the crackdown on human rights defenders. And I think this is very important to point out because he never came out after the outcries by the Bahraini people about his statements. He never came out and said anything to go against what he had said earlier. And this is very important to point out. Now, the meetings I did have with US officials previous to to my trip that is going to happen soon. A lot of them expressed great concern about what is happening in Bahrain, and that the US government would not stand for torture, or they would not stand for arbitrary arrest. But we have yet to see a clear statement coming from the US administration saying that they are against us. Because we know the Bahraini government will change their decisions according to what the US tells them. And of course, we also find this because the US is now expanding their military Navy base in Bahrain. And we believe that that may be one of the reasons why they're keeping a close mouth to what is going on in Bahrain. So it's very important that we try to lobby these different, whether it be congressmen or NGOs or whatnot in the US community, to actually speak out against what's happening. Because they do have a lot of influence on what's going on.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's a bit of a difficult question. That reminds me, I was at a seminar once in Northern Ireland, and the British government were very oppressive towards the Republicans there. And I met people who, from the beginning, were working in human rights. So what they would do is just kind of collect witness testimonies. They didn't have any banners or any logos. They were just individuals who do that. And then they would send these testimonies off to certain UN bodies and things like that. And it was a slow process. It was a gradual process. They built up the case gradually, so this is what I'm saying. I think at the moment, in terms of what we can do as a human rights organisation, we may not be able to have the kind of effect we'd like to, because, to be honest, you have to consider Bahrain and think about, okay, what would really kind of, make them change their policies. Maybe if economic pressure was put on them. Bahrain is a country which is got a lot of, which is quite up and coming. There's a lot of investment and things like that going on. If there are organisations like us who highlight the human rights abuses going on, this then becomes very embarrassing for them when they go and they meet international people, when they do business with them, if they've got a really poor human rights record. So one of the things Bahrain is really concerned about is its international public image, which is one of the reasons why we try to put a lot of their we highlight their abuses on our website and in seminars like this. So it's just a matter of finding what will affect them. The UN process is very slow as well. I mean, they've violated many UN conventions, but by the time it gets processed, it's very slow. So I think it's a struggle, and we just have to kind of take it day by day.
Thank you very much, Hanifa. So if you'd be kind enough to conclude with your remarks, Dr. Bandar, on the issue of finance and who's benefiting and where the money is going.
I think the issue of the financial cartel who is influencing, in fact, for the first time for the last 300 years of the Khalifa ruling, that the financial cartels are playing the upper hand. And in fact, I have 10 pages here to elaborate on this, because as I mentioned to you, I was party to a brainstorming sessions recently in one of the British think tanks. And my intervention, in fact, as I said, the amount of financial assets at the moment within Bahrain is 20 times the GDP. And to be more precise and frighten you, there is more money in Bahraini banks as we speak than in United Arab Emirates. Believe it or not, the total deposits and assets of the banks in the United Arab Emirates, I'm not saying Dubai, is $320 billion. So Bahrain is almost $222 billion for such an island is not bigger than Isles of Man, is substantial. And the total assets in 11 banks in Saudi Arabia at the moment, this is the biggest brother in the region. Believe it or not, the total amount is $347 billion. So a country like Saudi Arabia and a powerful country like United Arab Emirates, they are having between $320 to $347 billion. And a tiny island like Isles of Man is controlling $222 billion. I'm putting this in your mind because nobody, even the Bahraini themselves, are not thinking about this. It is serious. So the king now is pushed, because I will take you back to 1975. The civil war in Lebanon broke up around April, mid-April. And when the financial cartel came to Bahrain at the time through the influence of the current prime minister, they asked him to put some fences around this rising influence of the contract between him and the people. At that time, there is less Shia representative and the secular have the upper hand, the leftist in fact. But they joined together to oppose the weapon of the time is the national security law. So by November, in fact, he decided to dissolve the Representative Council, to pave the land and to secure the move of the money from Beirut to Bahrain. Now, it is the same story again. The king is pushed by a very powerful cartel within the country and out the country, is to control the rising periodic outburst of violence from the people, finding ways. And I tried here, in fact, to say what is the alternative now they're offering him. One alternative, because he was ill for the last 2 or 3 years, and his grip on power is slightly weakened. So even within the family now, they are jockeying individuals who's trying really to convince the West that they are a credible alternative to protect all this wealth. Because when the violence in fact started in the mid of 2008, in only a few months, $31 billion siphoned out of the country. And they are blaming him. That's why now the king is even coming forward. And a lot of people, they were surprised why this guy is not giving himself a chance. For the first time, the ruling family are putting all of their eggs in the one basket. Now, for the last few years, always the king stepped back and tried to give a leeway for him. When it's going to go to an impasse, he will come in and say, well, let us forgive them this time. Now, what I'm saying, this time is difficult. It's very difficult. Because the challenge for the king himself, pushed by the interest, financial interest cartel, he's not really, in a way, so sure about the regional powers and how they are influencing the country. But at the same time, he knows damn well that England and America, they will not going to support him fully.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much for the audience for turning up on this rainy evening. It's great to see so many people turning up to hear as to what's happening and the future prospects for Bahrain. Thank you very much, the speakers, for your presentations. All of them were fascinating, detailed and informative.